If you're a tech seller that's struggling to understand the enormity of the tech sales world, look no further, my friend. This lesson is for you. In this free tech sales lesson, I'm going to take you through the tech sales ecosystem and show you who's who in the zoo of tech sales. So, in this free lesson, you're going to understand the major players of tech sales. We're going to understand and see the whole tech sales ecosystem and see how it works. And then we're going to go through the leverage points. What are the little tips and tricks inside the tech sales ecosystem that you can leverage for massive advantage to sell more? All right. If this is the first time that you've seen me, my name is Jameel Raymond. I'm the founder of Tech Sales Academy. I was a former 2x top 1% account executive at Cisco and Telstra Enterprise. I was Cisco's #1 mid-market AE worldwide in 2023. And now I've transitioned into coaching and teaching technology sales to other non-technical people just like myself. And the good people at these vendors that you see to my bottom think I do a pretty good job. All right, so let's make learning about tech sales fun. So, first of all, what is the tech sales ecosystem? What is an ecosystem? It is the big world that we operate in. Right? We have all these little worlds that we live in, and the tech sales world is all about the technology, the vendors, and so much more. When you understand what the ecosystem does, right, when it works in harmony with the customers and the flows of information, understanding how they interact is really important to find these leverage points. And these leverage points are areas that you can take advantage of as a seller to create massive ROI on your sales efforts. Okay, so it's really about understanding, right, like a coach, the little details of the game, the intricacies, and then finding all of the opportunities within it to make big bucks. All right. So first of all, let's go through the major players of tech sales. Who are they? First of all, we have our customers, right? We are here to serve customers. We are here to solve people problems for our customers. Okay, so they can be private businesses, corporations, they can be the government as well. We understand them all the way from SMB up to enterprise in the B2B world. Next up, we have the vendors, who are the technology creators and suppliers. They are your Apples, your Microsofts, Googles, Amazons, whatever that you sell. Now, these vendors will either sell directly to their customers and have an account team, or they will leverage a partner ecosystem who creates scale for these vendors and sell on behalf of the vendors and add on a little value. Coming to our third point, which is the partners themselves. These are smaller companies, usually privately owned businesses that will on-sell vendor solutions like, AI, networking, etc. And they will provide services on top of that, to implement, install, maintain, etc. And they make a little bit of money in the professional services aspect of that. And they usually have a symbiotic relationship where they get a bit of commission from the vendors themselves to sell the products and then add a little bit more margin for themselves through the services that they offer to the customer. Okay. Besides that, we also have the distributors. Now, the distributors are, usually quite big organizations. And what they do is they act like a middleman between the vendors themselves and the broad array of partners that can exist, anywhere in the world. So what they do is they usually will hold and distribute a vendor's product if it's hardware, have services to help manage the relationships and the resources of the vendors for the partners. And again, provide distribution and scale for the vendors in exchange for usually a bit of commission and a bit of a middleman commission or value in between. Okay, so you might have heard of big distributors like Ingram Micro, Westcon, Dicker Data, etc. Next, we have the government, and we all know the government, the big old government, and they provide regulations and laws to make sure that we are all operating safely, making sure everything's fair, etc. So there's things like regulations, like GDPR, fair competitive practices, making sure that everyone's applying and working above board to make sure that no one's getting ripped off. Next up, we've also got peak bodies. Now this is getting into the more intricate part of the ecosystem. And what a peak body is, it's an industry-specific association. So what they'll do is, for example, if you were to work in medical, then it might be like the Peak Doctors Association. One of the examples that I have personally is that I worked with a lot of governments and a lot of local government and a lot of councils. And what they would do is they had these peak bodies that would provide information, resources about the industry. And they have a lot of influence in their industry practices and are worth getting to know and to influence if you can, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. And then we have the public resources. This is just whatever you see on the internet, right? The news, Reddit, YouTube, just being out in the world, people, business people, they're just regular people and they want to hear from others who've had those experiences to get, information on how to do their job best, just like you're doing right now. So what we have here is the ecosystem map that I've put together, okay? So what an ecosystem map is, it plots out all of the major players that we've just talked about here. You've got your tech vendors, distributors, partners on the left, customers in the middle, government and peak industry bodies in the middle, and public resources on the right. And then we've got the flows, okay? So the importance of the ecosystem is to understand the flows between these parties, okay? And when it comes to an ecosystem, when it comes to business strategy, it's about understanding the flows of money, information, and products, which I've listed in the top right corner here. Now, with this, right, it's probably going to be hard to see on a mobile, much better enjoy it on the YouTube. So let's go through the ecosystem itself. First, we'll start with the vendors because we usually need to talk about the vendor and the customer relationship. So in the top left there that you'll see there's the tech vendors. And what they will do is in the red, they will do vendor direct sales and engage their customers if they have a direct relationship. And the usual exchange is they provide sales for products and services, customers pay them in return, which is in the green. Okay, pretty straightforward stuff. But if there is an indirect channel, which has been specified with the dotted lines, then when it comes to speaking to a customer through a partner ecosystem, if you're a vendor or if you are just a partner itself, then the tech vendors will usually give some of their margin, some of their sales enablement, some of the product to the distributors. The distributors will hold that product and provide enablement potentially for the partners who are service integrators or something to that regard, a smaller company that does professional services. The distributors then will pass on those services for a bit of margin and help the partner sell a little bit more of that stuff as well on their behalf and enable them to then provide the best, indirect service, obviously indirect channel, to the customers and get paid that way. So those are your two differences between the direct channel and the indirect channel, okay? The other players that are interesting and of note is the government, well, of course, who are providing, regulations and laws, which you can see in the yellow in the top there, to the vendors, to the entire playing field. And in return, tech vendors will provide some tax revenue, most of it, and customers do the same as well. What's also interesting to note is the peak industry bodies down the bottom, okay? So customers will often be associated with these peak industry bodies, okay? And they will usually pay some sort of fee to be involved for professional development, be part of the association, some sort of membership. And then in return, they'll provide the insights and best practices that they've collated from a range of different professional sources, okay? And then of course, we have the customers that are getting industry and product insights, the realities, right? Getting past the bullshit of what a salesperson will tell them about the product and get the reality of how a product works or what the experience has been through public resources, YouTube, Reddit, social media, etc. Okay, so this is the flow. This is all it is. All of the vendors that you deal with, all the partners you might talk about, these are the major players. This is all you really need to understand about the ecosystem and where things flow. So now that we understand the ecosystem in full, it's time to use this information to our advantage and create leverage, okay? So, to save the effort of trying to figure it out, I'm going to give you some of the most useful tactics and strategies that you can use when dealing with the ecosystem. Now, the general concept that we've got around learning this is a concept called the Nix, okay? You want to understand who is turning the head of your customers. This is about influence. This is about being able to get the attention, create authority, social proof of who you are and what you do to your customers at scale by leveraging this ecosystem to create maximum efficiency and ROI on your sales efforts, okay? And that is through influence at scale as much as we can, okay? So once we've plotted out the plays and the flows, then we can make the plays, and that's what we're going through right now. So the first thing you should do if you are in a partner-driven ecosystem or have partners is make sure that you respect and leverage them as much as you can, okay? And that works both ways if you're a vendor or a partner, okay? Because they often will have the ability to influence multiple customers at once on your behalf, okay? Through my time as a vendor account manager, which is in a almost 100% partner-driven organization, I would have a couple of key partners that I would trust and knew really well. and I could enable them, look after them just like a customer, and I knew that they were going to sell on our behalf together. Now, by doing so, I can actually, sell to multiple customers and get multiple deals in at once using my partner ecosystem just by creating great relationships, looking after the customer, looking after the partner and their interests, and going, well, this partner's looking after 5 of my customers. I can be pretty confident I'll get 5 different deals in when the time is ready, okay? Another thing to be very wary of is different customer sources. Where are your customers getting their information from? Who is influencing them in the public domain? Are you getting bad reviews in public resources, trusted resources? Reddit's becoming quite big nowadays when it comes to customer reviews and just getting honest feedback. It's basically, I think, the 4th biggest search engine. So you need to understand who are these influencers that are taking the attention of your customers. How do you respond to that? How can you, add value to that? How can you align with them potentially? If they're an influencer, could you pay them to do promotions, etc., to again divert attention towards you and your solutions? Okay. Another couple of interesting ways you can leverage this ecosystem is understanding who the peak bodies are in your organizations and in your industry verticals, particularly if you are very vertically aligned when it comes to industry. And what you want to do is, if you are not part of the trusted vendor or the trusted solution ecosystem of these peak bodies, and this applies to the long game, which is the last point there, you need to be influencing these peak bodies as much as you can over time, being present, going to their events, sponsoring these industry peak bodies, because they're going to influence your entire customer base at scale potentially. Okay, and then with the follow the leader, particularly in organizations or industries rather that do not compete, and they have territory bases like a government customer, like a hospital region, they don't actually compete and they will openly share information. And there will be a couple of what we call lighthouses. And these lighthouses are the leaders and the innovators in their industry. And then very often the smaller players in those worlds, in those ecosystems, will follow along with what they do because they believe it's best practice. So if you can influence those leaders as much as you can, trying to find those maximum leverage points, you will very quickly see that you are getting, sales and opportunities in the smaller customers in a similar industry. Okay, very similar with the long game. If you are in the long game for a very particular industry, then it is very useful for you to influence and get scale with this authority and social proof where you can, because that is a fundamental human psychology understanding, is that we follow leaders. We want to use social proof and authority to make sure we're doing the right thing. Okay. So to wrap up here, with the tech sales ecosystem, you want to know your major players, what their motivations are, okay? What do they do? What are they in the game for? You want to try and find these next and these leverage points, right? Where can you create massive ROI on your sales efforts? And then, one of my special points, particularly with partners, very partner focused, is to respect and leverage your partner ecosystem, because realistically, they are free labor for you and are very useful when done right, okay? That's it for this week's free lesson. If you want in-depth tech sales tips just like these, I've got over 30 of them for you in the Tech Sales Mentorship. Everything that you need to succeed as a non-technical salesperson in school.com/Tech Sales Academy. I'll see you in there. Ciao for now.